What we have here is the original letter that Abigail Adams wrote to John Adams, urging him to remember the ladies in March of 1776. This letter is graciously on loan from the Massachusetts Historical Society, where it's stored in the Abigail and John Adams family papers. This letter's display at the museum marks what we believe to be the first time that this letter has returned to Philadelphia since John originally received it in 1776. As Abigail wrote to her husband, "I long to hear that you have declared an independency. And by the way, in the new code of laws, which I suppose it will be necessary for you to make, I desire you would remember the ladies, and be more generous and favorable to them than your ancestors. Do not put such unlimited power into the hands of husbands. Remember, all men would be tyrants if they could."
In a way, although it's a private letter, she's articulating what becomes the agenda of the American Republic for 2 centuries, or 2.5 centuries now.
Absolutely, and not just the American Republic, but in particular women's rights activists of the late 18th, early 19th, and even late 19th and early 20th century.
And yet it's still a letter between a couple. And you can imagine, they're in intensely stressful times. They're living in the midst of a war. The war is fought in their own backyard. If they lose, they're complicit in, or they're actually leading treason against their country, Britain. And in the middle of all of that, they decide to have this conversation at a distance about the way that all the ideas of the revolution are going to change their marriage, right? I mean, boy, talk about a heavy thing to have to deal with in a letter.
Not to mention, in the remainder of this letter, Abigail goes on to speak of the smallpox outbreak in Massachusetts at this time as well. So not only dealing with the war and also all these issues within their marriage and of, rights for people in this new code of laws, but also dealing just with their families and the well-being of their children.
One of the things that we've been looking at here in the curatorial team is just sort of how these things moved, how letters like this traveled. You can see evidence of the folds all through this letter. And she folded it so many times because it had to essentially be its own envelope. It would be sealed with a wax seal and then addressed on a panel to John in Philadelphia. And then it had to easily fit into a pack or saddlebag to be carried down to Philadelphia. So just the kind of thought that needed to be put into secrecy, into getting a piece of information across. I mean, today we could toss off an email, but she didn't know if this would even arrive.
So many letters in this period were burned after reading.
Right.
So the fact that we still even have this, that the Massachusetts Historical Society has been able to maintain this and take care of it for so many years, we're so lucky to be able to have it.